Hello, everyone. Hi, my name is Olivia Estelle. Thank you guys so much for being here for my live Q&A of the month today on this Pisces Full Moon Monday. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. So just put your questions into the live chat and I will just get to all of them in order. Just make sure that I see it. If I skip it, re-ask your question if I skip it, because I have noticed I have done that before. So just let me know if you are here and if you are if you're tuning in. It's great to be here and hang out. So I am just going to start with what I wanted to discuss today was the Pisces full moon, and it actually happens exact within the hour. So kind of wherever you are and whatever the time is there for you, the Pisces full moon is going to be occurring while we're chatting if you are live today. So it's very, very cool and significant for me personally. Hi, Dana. Hi, SM. Thank you guys for being here and for chatting. I am so excited to talk. Hi, DM. Welcome back. It's so good to see you guys on here. So what Pisces full moon is it's actually a very watery moon. It is a completion cycle. So a full moon in itself is a completion. It's a fullness. It is a manifestation. We've come full circle. You're back, to the fullest point. And the moon cycle is an emotional one. It's an emotional cycle, and it's an inner world cycle. And so the new moons are a time of going inward and reflecting on what we want to begin, what we want to birth. The full moons are where we reflect on what we have already birthed and celebrate in gratitude. And then now that it is in Pisces is also a completion of the zodiac. So it's the very last sign of the zodiac. So that in itself is also a completion. So Pisces is the psychic, it's the creative, it's the artist. If you're a Pisces, you're the creative, you're the artist, the singer, dancer, actress, actor, the person here to really bring creativity into the world through the psychic, through the senses, through the intuition. And so that's really how Pisces birth their beauty into the world. It's a watery sign. It's also the sign of karma. It's also the sign of completion or karmic completion, bringing things to a creative end point. It is the 12th house on the wheel of the chart, on the wheel of astrology. So it can be karmic completion. And so one of the beautiful things about today is that Pisces full moon happens 2 days before the autumn equinox. And so that is what is celebrated by pagans and Wiccans called Mabon. And I don't know if I'm even pronouncing that correctly. I have only read it. I've never heard it even said out loud. But the autumn equinox it means equal night. And something really cool about the autumn equinox and the Pisces full moon happening so close is that they're both a completion point and a transition point, almost like a psychic transition point. It's both a fullness. So the autumn equinox, which happens on Wednesday, the 22nd of September, 2021, here we are. So it means equal night. And so that is when it's equal day and night. And so the idea of balance, becoming into equality, as well as harvest, gratitude, transition, all of those ideas are really what this week is holding. This week holds that energy of of those things. So think back on your summer. Think back on what you have already manifested, what you have to be grateful for, what you have maybe what you want to continue, what you want to birth forward in a creative way. Since it is Pisces, it is kind of about being able to use those creative ideas. And so whatever, today's very watery here, it's just been raining all day, crazy rain. And so it's just a very psychic, emotional sort of day. And I would say that is, we can use that for bringing in not only gratitude for what we've already manifested, but it also a special window to continue to manifest what you've already manifested. So it's always a beautiful idea to practice gratitude. It's one of the most, I think, helpful things I have ever done, is doing what I believe Albert Einstein used to do. And I know I've mentioned this before, but every, morning when he would wake up, he would say thank you with every step for as long as he could really hold that idea. And so that gratitude really pulling the energy into more manifestation. And especially today with Pisces, full moon, and then the autumn equinox on Wednesday, we have a lot of opportunity to really amplify what we have to be grateful for and focus on that in order to really multiply it, in order to really hold that emotional state, maybe the emotional state of creativity, so that we can get into and sink into a more creative place for manifesting. So that is something that I wanted to just start off with today and just really get that out there on the table. And then I wanted to talk about the higher self. So channeling the higher self. That is one, that could be a lifetime goal, a lifetime of work, channeling the higher self. So really, it is my opinion that any channeling should really be focused on the higher self. At least it should be done first. And so my idea of the higher self is the aspect of us that resides on a higher frequency, that resides in, the higher planes. Basically kind of us from where we came from, pulled, so we're here on the physical, and the other piece of us that resides on the other side that is higher than us has a broader spectrum. They have a broader view than we do. And it's still us. And they can show us where we came from. They can show us who we are. So getting to know the higher self, I believe, is the best and safest channeling practice to do. And also, once you get into your higher self, once you start really getting to know yourself on that level, on that deep psychic level, then you can start, your higher self will start introducing to you more other beings, more beings that are in resonance with you. So, oh, hi, SM. So thankful for my cats and dog. I love that. Definitely. I have a cat too. And so I'm definitely thankful for my cat. So I have a great question here from Ivana BB. Hi, Ivana. You go, hi, Olivia. I was wondering if higher aspects of us can be our guides. That is such a good question, because really that is what our higher self is. Our higher self acts in the capacity of a guide. It acts as a spirit guide, really. So what I would say is that our higher self is the highest aspect of us that we can contact, that we can channel, that we can pull in. That's what our higher self is. And our higher self does act in the capacity of a spirit guide. And so if you've ever met your spirit guides, or if you've ever become aware of a being or animal or a person or an extraterrestrial that is a spirit guide for you, or they act like a spirit guide, know that the higher self is also, they act in the same capacity. What I have noticed, my opinion on the higher self, is that when I hear stories of people saying that, oh, I was in this, horrible position, and then suddenly something came in and pulled me out. It was like a miracle. To me, that's a higher self intervention. It's like, it can feel like someone's guardian angel. I often hear higher self and guardian angel interchanged, where guardian angel, the idea of guardian angel is a being that is with us our whole life, kind of in a protective capacity. And that is completely what our higher self does. Our higher self, if our higher self sees someone else acting in a free will manner, like around us, that is going to affect our free will or our trajectory, our higher self steps in. They absolutely do. That is, what miracles are made of. It is something that I have seen, it's something I have experienced, and it's something really beautiful to remember. It's what miracles are. Basically, I feel like even if it's not your higher self that steps in, your higher self can sometimes send another person in as a miracle, or as just an intervention on your behalf for your best interest. That's something that the higher self always has, is it always has our best interest at heart. It never intervenes like in a pushy way. It never pushes itself in. It never kind of forces us to go, in a direction that it wants. It wants us fully and completely to be acting in our highest purpose. Okay? And so it's never pushy. It never gives orders. What I've noticed about the higher self and about true spirit guides is that they never give orders. It's never like you need to do this. Sometimes I have gotten messages that I have filtered in that way just because I feel like I have to force myself to do something anyway. And then that's what causes me to filter that message that way. That can happen. But they're never, your true spirit guides and your higher self are never pushy. They never force themselves on you. And so that's another important thing to remember when it comes to channeling your higher self. It's never going to be something that just like comes over you and like whooshes in and you're like, what happened? That could happen if maybe you've already connected with your higher self and you've already been working on pulling them in. You might feel it physically, but it never surprises you. They'll never just kind of shock, that's not what they do. That's not what the higher self is about. The higher self is all about subtlety and allowing you to make the choice to bring in that energy on your own. And when it comes to channeling your higher self, that idea is really what happens through grounding, keeping yourself embodied, really staying in your body and really staying in your energy as much as you can, so that you can allow more and more of you, the true essence of you, which is what your higher self is, to come in and to embody you. And so really that comes with channeling your higher self. Really doesn't necessarily have to come with an overt channeling practice. It really has to do with meditation and getting back into your own space and making your own boundaries and feeling your own emotions and really getting clear about who you are in your highest essence. So sometimes this can be a little bit of a subtle practice that's not necessarily an exciting thing. It doesn't feel different. It doesn't feel like an altered state. And so people sometimes will go for, a change. They'll want, something to feel really different or the personality to be really dramatic. And this is kind of what happens when people start, channeling other beings. But ultimately, channeling your higher self it doesn't, at least in my experience, it doesn't feel like a huge dramatic shift of like a new personality coming in. It doesn't usually happen all at once, at least not in my experience. It happens in almost trickles. It's like you're slowly building up the energy, just like you don't necessarily walk into a gym and bench press 250. You have to work up to it. So that's kind of what the message is around the Pisces full moon, is when it comes to psychic ability, creativity, channeling, or getting in touch with your spirit guides or higher self. It's an energy that builds. We build up this energy. We build this connection, and it can take a lifetime. We work on this for lifetimes. And it's something that when people kind of come in and it's a natural gift for them, it means that they have worked on it in past lives. It's not that it's not that some people, just have these psychic abilities and can very easily channel their higher self, and others. It's because they have worked on this in past lives. They've already built a strong connection to their higher self previously. And so they kind of just step back into that memory. It's really just a remembering. Learning something new can take a little bit longer than just remembering something you already knew. It's that whole idea. But even if it isn't something even if it is completely new to somebody, it still is something that is worth working on and building. And so I actually got into this in a video that I am about to post this week. I did a 3-part series. Yesterday, I posted a video on psychic versus mediums. So what's the difference? So I posted a video on that yesterday, and then I'm going to post one on channeling that kind of has to do with what I've been speaking about, and then another one on mediumship and just really getting into what mediumship is, because it's really my opinion that in this day and age, I feel like we can choose to be mediums. We can choose to develop our psychic abilities. We can choose to, be channels. We can choose to open up more of these things, where I feel like in our freshest history, our most recent history, like in the spiritualist movement, it was almost like the energy was denser then. And so it was really only the gifted people that could pull through that energy. Whereas now the frequency is just so much naturally higher. It's just so much different and better, honestly. I mean, you wouldn't really know it, by opening up a newspaper, but the energy on the planet we're just being bathed in a higher frequency. It's coming from our sun, or the sun behind our sun. It's like a new serious frequency that we used to walk in. And so many of us as old souls are reawakening and remembering what that felt like when we used to walk in Egypt, when we had that ancient civilization. I mean, beyond ancient Egypt, just ancient energy, the Lemuria, Atlantis. Those of us that remember those times really feel the energy now, and it's like you can feel a disconnect, like we should be living differently than we are. Society should be different than it is. Like we can feel the resistance, like we can feel the difference because we know what it should be. So that is how I feel about the energy now. And so I feel that means that you can choose to be a medium. You can choose to be a psychic. You can choose to develop your intuition. And in fact, I think everyone should, especially if you're here watching this, if you're watching my stuff, it's really, the whole message is really that everyone is intuitive, and it is our absolute right to develop that, and to not think that, just because someone else maybe they're further along the road, or maybe they're, if you see those mediums that are really impressive and it's evidential mediumship and they're just giving proof, bam, 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 describing grandpa to a T. It's such an impressive art. And I just want to tell all of you that you can do that. You can develop it to that degree. For some people it might take longer than others, but it is absolutely something you can develop. And so that's what I get into a little bit more in my videos that I'll be posting 3 this week. So just keep an eye out for my mediumship videos, because that is absolutely, I feel like, where we're headed. We're headed to where everyone is really going to be able to develop mediumship and develop their psychic intuition. And then the next level, like, we just keep pushing it, right? We keep spiraling upward. The next level is going to be bringing in the cosmic mediumship, as Gigi Young calls it, cosmic mediumship, which is a beautiful way to describe it. And I know that many of you, and probably all of you guys watching right now, have that piece in you, that draw. I mean, if you're drawn to me and my information, I basically came in seeing aliens, like seeing extraterrestrials, just like going through walking through my room like a line, like they had been lined up and were waiting. So the idea of other beings, and I mean like different, like all different, blue skin, green skin, white skin, just different looking, all kinds of different beings, kind of like the cantina scene in Star Wars, but less creepy. So what happened was I came in, with that cosmic mediumship piece that no one could really label, right? Because it's not really a thing. It's just now coming onto the scene. But then what happened was I was in, an environment of fear and kind of dark stuff. And so then I started seeing the dark stuff coming through, and things got a little creepier. The grays came in, blah, blah, blah. We've already talked about that. So that whole spectrum is where I feel like the world is headed. We're being pulled into cosmic mediumship. And sometimes I wonder if it isn't a foundation to develop mediumship first, to really get to know who the deceased loved ones and who the ghosts on the land are first, in order to get us, in to build some of that energy, in order to build up from that, because they're on two ends of the spectrum. I would say mediumship is probably like over here, and then cosmic mediumship is just over here. And so wherever your radio antenna tunes in, and this is how my teacher Bonnie McCliss has described it, and it's just the best description I've ever heard, but wherever the radio antenna kind of naturally tunes in is where we hit. So, we have people that kind of come in and they just see dead people, for lack of a better word. They might see the death of somebody. They might see kind of more physical, grounded things. They might see their own loved ones. They might see grandpa. They might see the old woman that used to live in their house, that when they were a kid. And that's kind of where their antenna naturally goes. And then you have, other people who, they might be in the middle, and they might kind of go back and forth. They're like, I'm seeing grandpa and I'm seeing aliens, and I'm just kind of all over the board. There's many of you guys probably are hitting somewhere in the broader spectrum. I see they show it to me as a rainbow. It's kind of a rainbow spectrum, people. So it's like the idea of the rainbow child or the rainbow prophecy. I don't know that much about the rainbow prophecy, but that whole idea that a higher order spectrum is hitting Earth right now, broader spectrum of souls, broader spectrum of light coming through our sun, just a higher frequency, so that we can hold a wider bandwidth and we can kind of go between the astral planes, and that we can go between the worlds and the realms and connect in a wide spectrum. But building up that, especially cosmic media, if you're really wired over here with the aliens, really have to, what we're really called to do is to really build a solid foundation of grounding. Okay, it really is important, because that's a big spectrum that we're open to, and it can potentially really blow the fuse of so what happened for me is, it was just coming and coming, and I was just seeing seeing all kinds of different beings, and it didn't make sense, and I wasn't grounded. I wasn't really focusing on getting my life purpose figured out. Like, I didn't know who I was, but I was seeing all of these things, and what I failed to do was to focus first on kind of the lower chakras, to focus on the survival, to make sure I had a roof over my head and I could pay my bills, and then the second chakra, of making sure that my traumas were being addressed, my creativity was flowing, I was actively using my gifts and interests in whatever way that I wanted. And for me, back then, that was singing. I sang opera and musical theater. And so, I really loved getting into those things, because it really helped. It helped connect that second chakra. It helped the throat. That was my form of expression. So whatever your form of expression, all of you cosmic mediums out there, whatever your chosen form of expression is, really do that to get those lower chakras moving, even if it's just, singing, just signing back up for voice lessons, or writing, journaling, during the day, just to get that moving. Because if I had stagnation in my creativity, or in my lower chakras, if I didn't know where money was coming from next, that would create kind of a bottleneck in my energy. And then if a being came to me, I didn't have the energy to hold it. I didn't have the ability to really ground that being and then discern their intention, because it was almost like I couldn't discern my own, right? That's how it kind of felt. So that's what as with cosmic mediumship, you have to kind of really build your own sense of groundedness and really build your bottom chakras. And so the middle one is really important, the power center. When it comes to really getting into our lower chakras and creating a grounded, firm foundation, that third chakra can be really ignored. Like, we tend to, we tend to be aware of our wounds and our traumas for the most part. Sometimes we uncover those later, like I did. But then the third chakra is our sense of power, our sense of agency, our sense, the power that we come into when we're fully embodied and we're living our purpose. So that sense of power is something, what I would suggest for that is called doing an act of power. And it's not really just one. We have to do whatever it is over the years to really build it up. And what an act of power is taking an action for yourself that is you facing a fear, is you really facing maybe your biggest fear. Maybe, and today on a Pisces full moon is a beautiful day to really think about what that is, to really dream that up. Like, what would your wildest dream be? Like, what's the craziest dream? Like, money were no object. What would you do? That kind of thing. and really maybe write that down or meditate on that, get into what that is, and then see what the closest, most wild, but yet still reasonable step you can take to do it, to really put yourself out there. I know, honestly, for me, doing these was an act of power for me, because it was like, who am I to really talk to the public that I can't see and that is, just out there, and what will I say? But ultimately, I found that pushing through the fear and resistance opened up so much more energy within me. It bolsters up that third chakra, which is kind of there are several, all of the chakras are really energy way stations, but really being able to hold space and hold power is what is necessary with cosmic mediumship, because you're doing so much at once. You're discerning intentions, you're receiving information, and you're receiving lots of high frequency energy. It can almost be hard to stay awake. Like, it can almost be hard to consciously hold all of it. And that is why most of it for me started out happening in dreams and contacting that way. And honestly, I still don't remember all of it. And so that is just how I started building the energy, was acts of power, kind of running straight for my own fear and doing things anyway, feeling the fear and doing it anyway. One of my favorite books. And that builds a sense of power that helps you hold more and more space, more and more energy, and it gives more agency to keep taking more steps and more acts of power. And this is a spiritual practice, and it does build up the psychic energy. It builds up your ability to hold more and more energy, to channel more and more of yourself. Of course, also doing the shadow work of really clearing out my own biases, my own, triggers, getting aware of what those are, is also a big part of channeling the higher self. It's clearing out the space. It's decluttering the psychic closet. Okay. So that's really what, going to therapy is, it's the same thing as the magic of tidying up. Clearing out your closet and decluttering your house is a shamanic practice. It absolutely is. It is a physical representation of what you're doing on the inside. And when we tend to declutter our house, we tend to declutter our inner world too. We tend to have a little bit more space inside and outside. So hi, Empire of the Light. Hi, Tamara. It's so great to see both of you. So yeah, just let me know if any of you guys have any questions. Hi, Matt. It's so good to see you. I have that fear of public speaking also. Yeah, it's one of those things, right? Got to do it. I mean, I felt like if something was a fear, that was almost the direction that I needed to go. It was almost like I would follow my fear, for lack of a better word. I would kind of use that. I'm like, well, what should I do next? Well, what scares me the most? Okay, I'll just do that. So honestly, one of the things that I thought about doing, and then COVID hit and I have yet to pick it back up, but that's not an excuse, was like Toastmasters, or something that really just got you in front of other people, got me speaking, got me doing something that I knew was going to give me anxiety. And I was just going to kind of go for it as an act of power, not an act of torture or self flagellation, really just as an act of power, because I would feel so good afterwards. I would feel so accomplished. It would be just like, okay, check that off. I knew the first time I did a gallery reading where, I had a group of people, and did kind of like a group psychic reading and held the space for that many people, it was like, okay, that was like I could check it off. I could check it off my list of things I didn't think I could do. And then suddenly I proved to myself that I could. And then afterwards, I had the work of kind of going through and noticing where my mind went with the like self-criticism or any other direction that my mind would take me. Then I worked with that because that showed me all of my limiting beliefs. That showed me what I really thought of myself. And it showed me how I was programmed to think of myself, which is why I was afraid of speaking out, of public, speaking or just connecting in a bigger way to a bigger group of people. So yeah, I'm glad that I'm not the only one, guys. And I'm SM. I felt almost attacked before I sent the last message. Speaking online is anxiety inducing for me at times. I don't know. Oh, I see what you're saying. It kind of, the speaking online created anxiety, and you felt like anxiety was attacking you just saying hello. I mean, I totally get that. So I'm glad that you kind of reached out and did it anyway, kind of pulled, you sent the connection out. That's really what we're doing when we make an act of power. We're sending more of our connection to our higher self, to higher pieces of us. We're creating, like thread by thread, we're threading together that bandwidth, one act at a time, one line at a time, until it's a solid, powerful structure that we have built up. Okay. So hi, DM, Olivia, about the upcoming fall equinox on the 22nd. Do you have any recommendations or rituals that we could do to welcome the radiance of that day? We can all welcome the magic. That is a beautiful question. So I would say anything that brings you into your own sense of gratitude or balance. The idea of the equinox is that it is equal day, equal night. That's what equinox means. So we have one in the spring where we're coming out of the winter into the light. And in the fall, we're kind of coming out of the light into the winter. So we're coming into ourselves, into a more introspective time. So what's really beautiful about that is we're shifting in. We're shifting inward. Humanity knew that the winter was kind of the more, inward period, even more difficult period of time. So that actually made that whole transition, it made it really special and really sacred. So what I would suggest that you do is light some candles, maybe pull out a journal. I mean, I'm all about journaling and writing. And so really pulling out your journal and your candles and creating a beautiful space for you, and maybe get into beauty, like what you feel is beautiful, and I would write about what you're thankful for. The equinox, the fall equinox, was a harvest celebration. We would traditionally celebrate the harvest. Now that we're more of an industrialized culture, the harvest means something different to us. So that could be what you've manifested, what you have achieved, what energy you have built over the summer. So I would really look deep inside and see if there is something that you want to celebrate, what your own personal harvest is. So definitely, I feel like lighting a candle, acknowledging the light, acknowledging, the balance, whatever you can do to bring yourself back into balance. So that could be I'm just seeing light. So whatever light is around that you can kind of bring in, whether it's lighting candles or stringing up lights, these are like a beauty. That's why we have Christmas lights. We're remembering the light. And so the harvest and gratitude, and also giving back. I think one of the rituals that I tend to forget is the idea of giving back to society in whatever way we can. It's kind of like a sort of tithing. Like, I think ancient traditions, whatever they would harvest, they would give a certain percentage and like burn it in Thanksgiving, and the idea of abundance. So giving back is really just celebrating abundance. So find a way, to either volunteer your time or money, or just give that back, put that back out there, specifically, for a fall harvest Thanksgiving ritual, because I think that will really solidify in your mind and the universe your abundance and your opening to more abundance. So thank you for that one. So, hi, Dana. How can I handle my inner critic? It shows up every time I develop. Also, I'm in Toastmasters. Girl, yes. My club is online right now, and they're really open to unusual topics if you're interested. I would love that. I would love to join. I mean, you know that I would want to give a really weird speech. I was like, if I join Toastmasters, can I choose my own topic and watch everyone's face? Like, that sounds like a good time to me. I don't know about you guys, but that's a really good question. How can I handle my inner critic? I have to deal with that all the time. Like I feel you with that one. When it comes to doing an act of power or doing something that scares us, the growth does usually include, the kind of the kickback, like the criticism that, yeah, oh good, you have another psychic friend at Toastmasters. Oh good. So we'll have we're among friends. So that the inner critic, what I do, honestly, I'll do something that kind of pushes myself outside my comfort zone, and it will go awesomely even. It doesn't matter if it goes badly or if it goes awesomely. I mean, nothing really goes badly, but if it goes awesomely and then I get home, I still notice I'm like standing in my kitchen or like standing in the bathroom, like washing my face, and these thoughts that are kind of picking apart what I could have done differently. Did I do this okay? Did I do this differently? So what I say to do is to just really notice that, really get mindful, make it a mindfulness practice. Use your own inner critic as kind of a teacher, like a mindfulness teacher. Like, oh, I really tend to pick apart my this or my that, whatever it is that you're kind of going into, really look at that. Because I noticed for example, what happened to me recently was I was like, was I too harsh? Was I too punchy? Like, did I say that too direct? Should I have said that nicer? I really hope I didn't call that person out, and so and I was acting from a place of, speaking from a place of power, but also I was speaking from a relatively new place of power. And so I wouldn't necessarily say that my energy with my position of power and with speaking out in my power was super sophisticated yet, right? Because it was kind of new for me, speaking out directly and speaking to, when I'm kind of noticing something like, okay, that's an entity, I kind of need to call this out to kind of benefit other people. How to do that without it being like a public shaming ritual, which I also really feel you can't do that either. You really can't. You have to find, the silver lining. But in order for me to speak up in my power, did actually require being direct in that moment, in that instance. And then afterwards, I'm like, man, I'm just so, why did I do that? I really, shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have said it that way. And so I realized later that what I was doing this was actually a really old wound of mine, that anytime I spoke up in a direct manner, I got shut down. I got criticized. I got yelled at, actually. So especially when I was in my, psychic power. Like I actually have memories of, doing the psychic reading the way I'd always done as a child and getting screamed at. And whenever you're screamed at or yelled at or criticized, it's basically like a demonic attack. It's really the same. It's the same thing. It's the same energy. And so it was like that. And as a kid, all it caused was for me to like shut down. So I just would feel really embarrassed. So I realized, oh, I'm kind of feeling an old wound of any time I speak out in my power, it gets shut down and then I feel embarrassed. I'm like, why am I feeling embarrassed? Like, really notice your feelings, really notice where your mind takes you, and notice how your body feels. I mean, write it down if you kind of need to get neutral with it. And then that will lead you, it will lead the way to traumas, to what your old trauma was. So I realized, oh, like maybe I was acting as my aggressor, in the moment. Maybe I spoke up too aggressively, or because that could happen, especially if it's a new power and we're not that good at it. Sometimes we take the role of the model we've been given, and if we've been given a bad model, that's what will come out. But rather than get into guilt about that's just a lower cycle. Be like, okay, noted. I notice with neutrality, be like, okay, I know what I was doing. I was being my mom again, or whatever, whoever you were being again. And then notice, okay, I was also acting, in reaction to being on the receiving end of that. I was also kind of reacting out of, pushing through that old subconscious embarrassment that maybe we're not even aware of anymore. It's not consciously there, but that's what the inner critic rises up with. The inner critic brings all the stuff up. So whatever the inner critic is telling you, notice, be mindful of it, and kind of follow that down, follow that rabbit trail down. You'll find your root. You'll find the root of that trauma, and you can really, take it with, I would take it with me to my therapist. I would write about it. So, I would really get into it. I would use it to get into it that way. So that's a really great question. And Tamara, oh, good. You found a local group that offers mediumship practice. That's actually in my mediumship video that I'm going to be posting this week that I made. I made a little 3-part video of different psychic types. I urge you all to join a mediumship development group, and let me know if any of you all are interested in maybe like a Zoom mediumship practicum where we just get on Zoom together and practice mediumship, just practice with deceased people and keep it, kind of focused and really just practice those skills to build it. So let me know if that sounds like something you guys would be interested in doing together. Otherwise, find one online. There's all kinds of different ones. Look up like spiritualist groups or churches if you can't find any. They have some really, really good ones. But let me know if you guys are interested in doing that together. I'd love to. Awesome. So maybe I will put that out there. Definitely email me if that is something you guys would like to do, like a Zoom mediumship group where we just kind of hop on for an hour, practice mediumship, and then practice just building those abilities. Because like I say in the video, it really teaches you how your psychic ability works. It teaches you how you receive. Even if you don't want to necessarily be a medium, it teaches you how you receive. And it can teach you a lot about how your psychic abilities pop in, because you're getting evidence and other people are affirming you. It can really build confidence. I think it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, awesome, Tamara. So maybe I'll put together like an email group. You guys email me and I'll put together like a group, and we'll keep it kind of small and safe and contained, and it's just really a safe space to practice and really build up the build up the energy of mediumship. So oh good, Mimi7914, hi, awesome. And Matt, perfect. So that's a really good group right there. Just you five. So anyone else, just shoot me an email and let's get this together. And then we'll pick like a weeknight or something to, just hop on. So I did a 3-part video. I posted one yesterday. The next one is going to be on mediumship, and the next one is going to be on channeling. So I have psychic versus mediumship, what mediumship is, and then channeling. So let me know if there's any other topics along those lines that you guys would like a video on when it comes to just explaining the dynamics of it and explaining really what it is. So just let me know in the chats or later, and I will add those to my list of videos that I am going to be putting out. And so I really wanted to talk about, let's see, what is something else that you all would like to talk about? I have a really fun story that I feel like now might be a good time to tell, and it has to do with owls, and it has to do with psychic ability. It has to do with this. It has to do with these lives that I've been doing. So the first time that I signed up to do a Facebook Live, I went for a walk that morning. I went for a hike in the woods. And I'm hiking through the woods, and I'm just getting all of this information about the throat chakra and expression. And I know I'm about to do this live that night. And this is several lives ago. It's the very first one I ever did. So I am kind of just trying to channel and tune in, like, what should I talk about? What is going to be, a part of this live? Like, why am I doing this? What's the point here? So I'm getting stuff about, it's about, self-expression. It's about connection. It's about community, connectivity, and getting just the psychic energy going, because one of my practices is also to really send everyone as much love and gratitude and compassion as possible to all of you, all of the viewers, all of the people that are watching. And so it's also kind of, it builds the energy in like a beautiful, almost like energy healing way, or like Reiki way, even though I'm not a Reiki person. And so I think that's kind of synchronistic SM, your question, how do we stay in play and honor the inner child? Like, that is absolutely what what my goal was, for the energy of these videos. And so, I think it takes time for, that energy to really build and to settle in, but staying in play was really my intention. My intention was to just kind of show up and play with you all. Like, what are the questions? I'll talk about whatever you want. And also, I had talked about such kind of dark stuff in the past that I wanted it to be kind of an opportunity to just ask me anything. Like, let's just play and people can ask me whatever questions they want, and we'll get to it. And then it kind of turned into more of a psychic development, a psychic connection sort of group. So that was one thing that I did to kind of stay and play, was the idea of giving back, the idea of kind of giving back to the community or people around me, something that I love to do. Just to use that in a playful way. And so and honor the inner child. Well, also this, I mean, the story that I'm telling, it's so synchronistic. I just love this. It was walking in nature and being out in nature, not just kind of walking in my neighborhood or going to the gym, but specifically walking in the woods. Nature was part of my childhood life. It was my life. I would always be in the creek. I would always be outside. I'd be on my tree swing singing to the trees. Like that was just kind of who I was truly. And so getting back to walking outside was part of like an inner child kind of thing, honoring the inner child, because that's what I used to love to do. So really get into whatever you used to love as a kid, kind of before school came in, before, pressure came on. What did you like? What did you like to do? So for me, it was walking in the woods. So I was walking along, like, what do I need to know about this live that I'm going to do? Why am I doing this? Am I being silly? Like, is it, I had all these questions, kind of the inner critic, was going on, like Dana, like that was all there. Like, who are you? All of that. And I was just like being with it. I was just walking and like, okay, noted. Okay. Right. And so then I was getting all there. So my guide started talking about throat chakra. I just started opening up and being like, okay, what do I need to know? What do I need to know about this life? And they're talking about expression and really speaking my truth and really speaking my honesty, speaking my honest truth, being my full self, my full weird self, my full, say whatever I want to say what I truly believe in. And they were really clear about being true to myself and being, honest with what I think about things rather than what I think people want to hear or trying to make people like me because, it's a thing. So that I was thinking about that when I came into a clearing and a huge owl, it was a barred owl, and they're actually outside during the day, started singing. And so it like swooped down and then up into, it like did this really cool like U-shaped, and then it went up into a tree and just started singing their, the barred owl song of his people. And someone else actually was responding from far away, like they had like it was like an owl symphony. And so people started gathering because it was rather close. He was relatively close, and he was speaking to someone else, another barred owl, like far away. And it was just the loudest. He would like lean forward and just kind of scream, his song, not care. And people were gathering, loudly talking. And he was just going, and we were all so excited. Like there was just this sense of like, oh my God, we the honor of getting to witness this owl symphony. It was the coolest thing. And so these three older women come up behind me, and I'm like kind of annoyed because they're talking really loud, and they're like, yeah, my, grandson has COVID and blah, blah, blah. But he's fine now, and I just remember being like, really, you're really like talking really loudly right now. I'm having this moment. So kind of my like judgmental critic mind came online, with these poor women that were, just walking along the trails too. And so the owl finished his symphony, swooped down in front of all of us, really low, and then into the inside, the hollow of a tree. And we were like, it was the coolest thing. We were speechless. I think even the three women were quiet by that point. And so, as soon as, the symphony was over, I was out of there. I walked, as fast as I could to the exit. And this is a route I always took. I know this route. I have walked there every day, like almost for like 10 years at this point. Oh my gosh, has it been that long? So it had been so, I knew this trail like the back of my hand. I knew exactly where I was going, and I was taking the quickest route to the parking lot, to my car. So I start walking as fast as I can, and I look down and I see a white feather, and I'm like, oh my goodness. I pick up this white feather that I love feathers, and I always like, I love connecting with them, and feathers tend to be a yes for me, or a message from from loved ones. And then white feathers tend to be like an angelic message for me. And it just kind of turned into like the color started having meaning, blah, blah, blah. So a big white feather was really special. I put it into my purse and I zip it up. Like there's no, it was secure. And I keep walking and suddenly I start getting questions in my mind. And I start practicing how I would answer those questions. And so in my mind, I was kind of rehearsing for my live Q&A. And it was just fun. I was just in the flow. I wasn't really, thinking anything about it. I was just answering these questions. And then suddenly I'm getting up to, where I get off to the parking lot where my car is. And 2 out of the 3 women are sitting on a bench in front of me. And I was like, how'd you beat me? I was walking really fast. I left them behind. And they were both looking at me like very expectantly. And I almost got like creeped out. I almost was like, what? Because I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know what that was. And I was like, oh, hey. And they were like, oh yeah, what kind of owl was that again? Or some question about the owl. And I was just like, oh yeah, I think it was a barred owl. And they both just kind of were like, and I was so confused. And there was just like it just could not compute. So I just I got into the car and I turn on the car. It's about an hour earlier than it should have been for my regular route that I know. Yeah. So it was lost. Yes, Sam 3. Hi. It was like lost time, but it was earlier. It wasn't like later. It was like earlier than it absolutely should have been. So I was very confused. I'm like, okay, well, whatever. I have to get home. I open up my purse and the white feather is missing. I can't find it anywhere. Like I'm looking, I think I dumped everything out. It's a little purse and it was zipped up. Like there's no way that it could have fallen out. So I'm like, well, that's weird. I guess my feather fell out. Didn't really think about it further, honestly. I just kind of was like, okay, this is normal. This is a little bit normal in my life, I do have to say. So I kind of just continue on and try to stay grounded, honestly. Like that's really all I can do at this point because it's like, welcome to my life. But I log on that night for my live Q&A and guess what the very first question that I get is? It's about, do you have any stories about owls? Do you have any strange experiences with owls? And I was like, yes, but I couldn't tell that story because it was still like crystallizing in my own mind. I was like, oh my goodness. And then one after the other, all of your questions, all of, y'all's questions and other people's came through as questions I had already been given intuitively and already kind of rehearsed in a sense of like fun. Like I wasn't even really trying to control the situation, or maybe I did kind of I wanted a semblance of control really there. I just call myself right out. But every single question I had already kind of gotten a grasp on. I had already been given all the questions. So all of that to say, when it comes to doing an act of power or following the flow or getting into your inner child, all of these acts are leading us along a journey, like a trail, and maybe we don't see it. Maybe we don't know why we're in Toastmasters or why we're doing live Q&As, but it's leading us to the next step, and we have help. We are given help from higher beings, from our higher self. Our higher self is directing our evolution and directing our actions and our expression. So all that story really just to kind of show you what synchronicity and what kind of help is, colluding. What help really is out there to collude to get you to follow your wildest, craziest dreams. And we have all the support in the world. So of course, like later I'm like, what was that with the missing time and the missing feather? I want that feather and the owl and, like whatever, question. I was just so confused. And I could suddenly feel myself. Actually, I went back, I kind of like regressed myself. This is a good thing to do in a regression too. Oh, and then I also asked, I like regressed myself, and then I asked again with another regression specialist. Her name is Bethany Ellers. If you are out there, hello. And I asked her to kind of get like a second opinion. Like we worked on that with I did a regression with her, like a QHHT style regression, which is similar to what I do, but a little different. I don't follow like a strict protocol for mine. And so I was glad to see the difference, to kind of get something different out. That's what I was going for. But the answer that I was kind of given, I was kind of shown just being taken like beyond time, kind of taken up into a space where my guides, it kind of like slipping through a portal and then being uplifted and given energy and healing and support. And for me, it was like direct questions and answers too. And then kind of just being put back in my body in a way that was anomalous with time, because I was kind of taken out of time to be given help and support to do this. So that, yeah. The owls are not what they seem. Yeah. So for me, really, owls show up whenever there's like a glimmer in the astral, or there's some kind of portal or something happening, when spirit guides come around, or even my hybrid children kind of come around to help me like do this, talk about this. Owls kind of tend to get drawn to that energy. They're kind of the way cats are drawn to mice. Owls are also drawn to mice, but owls are drawn to like the shimmer in the astral, just intuitively. So that's as far really as I have come with integrating that story and understanding it. But while creepy ladies glitch in the Matrix, I love that. We actually just rewatched The Matrix, SM. We just watched the 1, 2, and 3 to kind of catch up for the 4th one. I love watching movies with like an analytical, I love analyzing what they're doing subconsciously. And so I'm like pausing it and telling my husband what I think is going on. And I don't know how he puts up with me, but he does. So that is, The Matrix actually is a movie I'm excited about. I'm really hoping that it is continuing in the good energy that the first 3 were, the cool story that they were showing. But to go back to a question that I missed. So SM, how do we stay in play, honor the inner child? Kind of just getting back to stuff that you used to love when you were a kid. Like I said, kind of like if you loved nature, get back out into nature. Beauty sometimes can take us there first. Really, like decorating a room to be really beautiful can kind of bring that inner child back, who maybe couldn't decorate the way they wanted to, or used to have a favorite room, and that kind of just gets you back into that thing. I also would go through old photo albums and look at pictures of myself. Like, who was she? What was she thinking? What was she feeling in that picture? What was she into? To kind of get back into my energy and be like, oh, I really was not happy as a kid. Like I could really feel that. And so getting back into what that kid needed, what I needed as, in a form of play, was really helpful for me. So hopefully I answered that question in a long and roundabout way. Hi, Jake James Vanek. I probably just butchered your name. So glad you're doing lives. The reading I had with you back in January. Oh, thank you so much. That is the point. I feel like if a psychic reading doesn't like lift you up and help create more confidence and help create more of a solid foundation in your psychic, in your own journey, in your own intuitive journey, then it falls flat. Like that's really what my whole message is, that like everyone is psychic. Where are you in that journey? What do you need to get to the next level? Where do you want to go? What do you want? You know, that whole theme. So I'm so glad you're here. It's so great to see you, fellow medium on the scene, guys. So Tamara, Olivia, do you hear your guides in words / sentences telepathically, or do you receive information another way? So that is a really good question. You know, sometimes I do get it telepathically or clairaudiently. Sometimes I do actually hear, but sometimes it's more subtle than hearing them. Sometimes it's more like a claircognition, like a knowing. Like I'll get their words and sentences in the form of a knowing. Whereas when my idea of telepathy that I have experienced has been clairaudient, where I actually hear kind of words or sentences. So that I hear them really more through just psychic knowing. Like I just will be given a knowing, and it's like I'm following my own thoughts, but I could feel that it's from a higher place. I can feel that my thoughts are coming from a different place. So that's really what I mean by clear cognition, is really following, just letting my thoughts run free because I'm already in like a high resonant state. I'm feeling really good. And so kind of where my thoughts go from there, from those high emotions, my thoughts are allowed to kind of take a higher state. And so those tend to be the more psychic thoughts, the more clear cognitive receiving thoughts. So that's what I would say is how I receive them, how I hear them. So yes. Hi, Solstice. Good to see you. Could you speak on the aspects and configurations in the natal chart of past lives as High Priestess? What a fun question. And if they manifest in the aura too, then how? You know, I love that. I'm not super focused on aura readings. I have done some classes on, or I have taken myself classes on reading the aura. And that's a really clairvoyant ability. And it is something, you know, that can be developed. And I'll kind of get into that sometimes. Like sometimes I kind of like watch the aura of other people to just kind of see how they're feeling. Be like, should I mention this right now? I don't know. I'm just going to see how she's feeling before I say it. That kind of a thing. But it's very clairvoyant. So the aura tends to be a strong clairvoyant thing. And that's not really, I tend to be more cognitive, where I'll just kind of know. So I tend to kind of just come around and be like, priestess, there she is. I'll just know it. But sometimes when I have seen things, I'll see things like wings for the priestesses, or I'll see like Egyptian symbols around, or kind of like Lemurian light language around the priestesses. So those are kind of my own personal symbols. And I would urge, you know, you in psychic development, we kind of build our own psychic dictionary. We build our own psychic language that we have to decode for ourselves. And so when it comes to the natal chart of past lives as high priestesses, it can be so many things. And I wouldn't necessarily say it's one aspect as much as it would be the whole chart. It would kind of like, I would kind of have to look at the whole chart and be like a sun over here with this over here, rather than kind of taking things in pieces. For me, it's like a synthesis. Definitely you can look at the South Node, and if you have been in positions of service often, or like if you have South Node in Libra, Sagittarius, South Node in, or even South Node in like Scorpio, those means that's your past lives, and those are past lives. And really South Node in any water sign is past lives of psychic focus and kind of psychic mastery for the water signs. For a South Node in Sagittarius, that would kind of be past lives in knowledge and higher thought, higher knowledge. So abstract thinking, right? And then Libra would just be like service. So think of like lots of kind of maybe staying in the background and really just focusing on the working on kind of keeping the ego to the side and just focusing on service and really putting others, helping others up, right? Can kind of tend to come around as once you've mastered that, then it's time for you to step up. It's time for you to step up, like on the pedestal. Those people will have a North Node in Aries. So that means their purpose is kind of to step up. But that kind of means that they've already mastered some of the other keeping balance and service, which is often in a priest setting, in a priesthood setting, or in like, societies, like old ancient mystery schools and societies where you're part of a group and, you're really not, no one is really standing out, or no one's supposed to really stand out because it's part of the kind of the sublimation of the ego in order to grow spiritually, to build a firm foundation, because they were thinking of their future lives. They were preparing for something. They were kind of preparing for this time now and in the future. So that's what I would say specifically about the natal chart, past lives as a high priestess. But I don't want you to think that that is a pigeonhole, because there are so many other aspects that it could be. I mean, past lives. Also look at the 8th house, what you have going on in the 8th house, because that's also kind of the past life or the priestess house. Look at where your water signs are placed, where your Scorpio, Cancer, and Pisces, where those are. And honestly, if you want to know if you were a priestess in a past life, I mean, are you here, like talking? Are you listening to this, or a priest? You'll know by the things you're drawn to. If you're drawn to that idea, if that idea really lights up your soul, makes you feel like, oh, finally, like makes you feel complete or whole, that's how you know that you had a past life connection to something. Our interests today are usually often built on things that are familiar from past lives, that just, we bring it back. We bring it back because it's familiar and we're interested in it. And it just seems to us like, oh, that's a hobby. But we don't realize their hobbies are usually built out of past life mastery, past life work, past life interests. So oftentimes, I'll do a past life regression with people and they're like, oh, I just saw that because I'm already into lions. I'm already into, kind of pyramid things. And I'm like, I just hear that all the time. People are like, oh, I just saw that because I'm already into it. And I'm like, well, you are into these things because they are an emanation from the past life that you're feeling. That's kind of coming up. It feels joyful. You feel more whole and complete. So if that is how you feel, solstice, if that's how, if the idea of, priestesses makes you feel alive, that's really how you know. And then when usually a priestess can like feel the others too around them, even if it's, a priestess that's not really living in her power, even if it's kind of like the shadow priestess, you can still kind of feel, the magic in other people. And so, yes. And Melanie, hi, Melanie, glad you could make it. My daughter and I found a bunch of white feathers today on a hike by the lake. And you saw a woolly bear caterpillar. Oh, let me know what color was the woolly bear caterpillar, because I've been kind of trying to follow the old traditional, or maybe native dictum where if it has a lot of black, that means it's going to be a colder winter. But if it has more brown, it's going to be more mild. So I don't know if that's true, but I haven't seen enough woolly bear caterpillars to know. I've only seen one, and there was quite a lot of black. So I'm like, I don't know if this is going to be a cold winter, guys. But that's kind of what the caterpillar was saying. Very cool. White feathers always... I mean, tell me what white feathers means to you, because really for all of you, what little signs and symbols from guides mean, like what those are for you. Because for me, feathers are signs and symbols from my guides. And usually it's like a psychic yes, like an affirmation. Whatever I was just thinking, when I look down and see it, it's kind of like a psychic yes to that thought or question that I had. So just know that really we each get signs and symbols of our own design. And we can start, and you can ask too. You can program it yourself. Like I say with mediumship, the way you can program mediumship, you can be like, I want to see pennies. I want to see quarters. I want to see, something, tangible. You'll start seeing pennies as little yeses. And then the idea is then you celebrate and you acknowledge and you say, thank you. Thank you. Got it. Thank you for that message. Got it. Yay, look, I found a penny. Like that, getting to that celebration. It can kind of feel silly. It can kind of feel like you're a kid again. And that's really what our guides are trying to help us do, is to kind of get back into that fun, into that celebration, emotion, energy. So I actually, one time, it was when I was pregnant, I kept finding feathers every day on my walk. And then one day I found a feather and a $10 bill. And I was like, this is just getting kind of ridiculous. Like just a $10 bill lying on, the grass between like the side. And it wasn't like in front of someone's house. It was like on the side. I'm like, this makes no sense. So they can get really funny. They can have like a sense of humor too. So if you really start playing with your signs and symbols and your guides and really getting into like fun with it, they start having fun with you, and it's really fun. So I would recommend that. Yes. Okay. Oh, is that you? The owl question. Hi, yes, cropped locks, and now you're Amina. I am sorry for that owl question. That's so funny. So I'm glad to know that was you. Isn't that fun how like we take part in each other's synchronicities without knowing, like we're led to ask certain questions and we're supposed to be doing, we take action on impulses that we want that turns out to be really significant for someone else, even though we don't realize it, right? You're just asking. So awesome. I mean, I'm glad that a few lives later, I finally answer your question about an owl story. So another synchronicity, you're in a room with feather stickers on the door. Very fun. I love that. I love that. Okay. Yes. So, Tamara, I forgot to ask you last time we spoke, how many hybrid children do you have? So when I see them, I see 4. I specifically see 4, but they don't always show up. Not all of them show up all the time. Sometimes it's just 3, sometimes it's just 2. And the gender actually changes. Like I don't always see them as specific genders. It tends to be more fluid, which can be kind of confusing. And the way that they show up is with pink. They show up with pink light. They show up with pink energy. And so I'll kind of get like a strong like pink thought or just pink hit, and then they'll kind of like slowly come forward, and they act in the capacity of a guide through they act in a guide capacity interdimensionally. And so I know that they have interdimensional ability, and they told me that they got it through their human DNA, not their alien DNA, which I found very interesting because they are mixed with gray. They're mixed with gray DNA. And so I guess they would be called Esasani. They don't really name themselves. They don't really announce what they are, at least not to me. And it might be because it's not super important to me, or I don't really get like connect to, like the Yael or the Esasani, but they're kind of slow. They very slowly and carefully try to like massage the energy into like a higher vibration. And so they really do carry a suit. They really have come back around and are like, I know the energy that of our creation was not, the best for you. And they have kind of taken my energy body was like sucked out of my bone marrow, I think. I mean, that's the best really intuitive hit that I have gotten about what they were doing. And it was like right here, like the drill. They were like these tiny drills that were going into bone marrow. And I can remember specific places where it would happen. But I think they were trying to pull out the essence or the emotional body in order to kind of get, you know, see if that would work, see if it would hold on beings. And really what they got was so much trauma and sadness that they were forced into like a really difficult, like fast healing process that would be kind of, we were really intense trajectory for them. I mean, I would say much harder than really even what humans have to go through, and what we go through isn't easy. But it's like their only emotional body was negative. You know, they really were forced to pull that into something better. And that kind of created the interdimensional height. That's when they kind of got into the heights of the dimensional ability and could kind of come around, you know, as guides. And we, I mean, on that note, we often act as guides for other people too. To kind of circle back around, Ivana BB asked, was the rest of her question was, do we kind of help, you know, other people as well? Like, really our higher self is just a higher aspect helping lower aspects, you know, evolve or raise up. And in reality, the same thing happens with other people. So we tend to work in the same capacity with others, either in dream time or just energetically working as in the capacity of guides for a time. Like we come together, we connect, and then, you know, we move on to whatever is in resonance and whatever continues to be in resonance. And really our higher self is the piece of us that is just in higher and higher and deeper resonance with us. So hi, Phoebe. Thank you so much. You are so sweet. So question, how do you like to discern imagination versus a claircognizant download? That's such a good question. What does strong claircognizance signify, and how to manage it if it overwhelms other senses? So, you know, to start with the last one, strong claircognizance can really signify a channel. It can signify someone who is a channel and who is very naturally has channeling ability. So when that strong claircognizance is all, it's psychic knowing. So if it is overwhelming other senses, sometimes for me, that kind of means I'm getting too much in my head and I need to kind of pull my thoughts back down, because usually my claircognition doesn't overwhelm other senses, but sometimes it can if either I'm too much in my head and I'm focusing and pinging too much on claircognition. And it can also happen when in the beginning, it was my natural clair. And so that was the easiest one to rest on. And I needed to kind of develop the other clairs. I needed to focus more on clairaudience. I needed to be listening more. I needed to be looking more. I needed to be like, okay, I needed to stop, look, and listen, right? Like before you cross the street, right? It's like that commercial. So I would like stop, okay, I know what I know about this. Now what do I see? Show me something. I'll ask my guides, like, okay, show me something. And I'll look and I'll wait till I see something. And then I'll listen. I'll be like, tell me something. And I'll kind of wait till I hear something. And so that's how I kind of built back the other clairs to kind of, you know, kind of like I was really strong in the bicep area, but not so much in the triceps. That was how I would kind of strengthen those triceps back up to bring it back into balance with the other senses. And how do you like to discern imagination versus claircognition? That's a really good question. Imagination tends to ride on, for me, imagination tends to ride on clairvoyant and clairsentient and feeling kind of waves. So my imagination likes to take me places visually and also like feeling wise. And so I like to follow that. And, you know, imagination really is the vehicle for psychic information. So it's not always like just your imagination, or, you know, the idea that, oh, that's your imagination being something that is inaccurate or wrong, or made up. Honestly, what I learned from my mediumship, from doing mediumship, is that the only way I could see someone's grandpa is if I just started making it up. It felt like making it up. If I just imagined it, I was like, well, I see a man. He's got blue overalls. He's sitting on a tractor. He's talking about winter wheat, and I would just kind of go through that imagination. I mean, it felt like I was making it all up. It felt like my imagination. So really practicing that was the only way that I could kind of suss out the two. And at this point now, my imagination is mostly psychic, like large amount of my imagination is a psychic thing. And so instead of just letting like my imagination run free, when it's pure imagination and I'm letting it run free, it's mostly like visualization that I am kind of controlling. Because when I'm just letting the flow of my imagination go, it was often psychic ability. So discerning claircognition from imagination, honestly, I had to get into imagination and be like, what is this? I had to follow it, and I found that much of it was psychic information. Much of what I thought was my imagination was psychic. And so I would really just do that. I would really follow your imagination and get to know it, get to see what it is. And that will tell you, okay, that's claircognition. And that, was kind of where I filled in the gaps and kind of made a Hallmark story out of something, which I would do too. But I had to practice before I kind of got, I'm filling in the blanks. I'm making a story out of this because I want it to take a certain arc, and I want it to be kind of complete in a way that it really wasn't. That's when my imagination would step in. So with practice, you start feeling like more than the imagination, I would call it the ego, kind of steps in and makes the imagination kind of take over. So I would say to kind of rewrite those symbols and those stories where, not, instead of, that's just your imagination, think, that's just my ego. It's just the ego. The ego is filling in the blanks because it wants to make a Hallmark card story out of this. And it might not be a Hallmark card story. It might not be. But being okay with the discomfort is really a psychic ability too. And that's really what meditation and Vipassana and mindfulness brings, is the ability to be okay in the discomfort if it is not a pure and like a pure package story that is, perfect, right? Like we want it to kind of be, and that it's easier to deliver good news when it comes to like mediumship. It's easier to deliver, a complete thing. And so just notice, the only way I could get really in touch with this was through practice, honestly. So do readings for friends and stuff and notice where you try to start pushing and filling in blanks. Because that was often where my accuracy would fall. That's where that would dip. So that's what I would say about that. And thank you, Empire of the Light. It's nice to see you back on YouTube again, Livy. And awesome, Tamara. You see bright pink orbs when you close your eyes. Yeah, so I don't know if I have heard of other people that get the same thing. I don't know if that is a kind of a universal pink idea for the hybrid children. But Sam 3, is it just letting go of control? There is that. Yes, there is letting go of control and getting into imagination and, the psychic. Letting the imagination be psychic does kind of require letting go of control. In the sense that we have been taught, that's just your imagination, ignore it, right? And so the whole letting go and getting back into that playful place is a psychic development thing. The inner child work is a psychic development work, because I would say children all really come in psychic. So getting back into the inner child is ultimately intuition development. So yes, the Hallmark card story thing is unfortunately true. It's kind of what I see is kind of what brings down most, mediums, is when they try to push and create something that's not there. And that's an urge we all have. It's literally in all of us, and just practice kind of clears that up. Practice makes, gives us more confidence, brings more accuracy, as we're raising our vibration, we're continuing to connect with our inner child, clearing out and connecting with people in a pure state. We get better at holding space in discomfort and not having to change it or make it better. We can stay kind of in that bleh, and be like, this is just the truth. This is what I see. Okay, awesome. One more. Hi, Sophia Kane. Hi, Olivia. Dragons are a theme that have come into my life, especially in the last year. I imagine them protecting us. Do you have any stories or thoughts about dragons? I love dragons. I don't necessarily have any stories. My husband actually really connects with dragons. And so I connect with dragons through him, I would say. Like I have kind of a connection with the dragon people through lions. I don't know how to explain that, like through the lion beings. But that's kind of, the lion beings kind of bring, dragons around sometimes for me. But my husband really connects with dragons. And for me, absolutely, they are protective. There's a high sense of honor and protection around them, specifically like entity protection I see with dragons. Like the dragons in the highest form, they were pure. It was like pure, you have that fire element, and there were different elements of dragons, right? You have like the water dragon, the flying dragon, the fire breathing dragon, and they were an elemental force of pure protection and psychic ability, like super psychic. And really the idea, of reptilians, or the idea of reptiles being negative, and my whole thing is that, like, not all reptilians are negative. There is a giant faction of them that are negative. I'm not ignoring that at all. I mean, it's the thing, but they're not all negative. And the vast majority of the positive ones that I see are dragons, are the dragon energy. Like the golden dragon, the white dragon, they tend to have a kind of, what I've learned, like through my husband, is the color that they appear with tends to bring their intention and their energy through. And that is really what I see about them. And I love that you feel that protective honor behind them, because that's really what they represented. I feel like they really represented like an honor code. And they were like an elemental in a way in ancient culture. They behaved like an elemental. They could control the elements, whatever element they were connected to. So I would kind of look into your connection with elements and the elementals, and whatever element you connect with the most, getting more into that, whether it's water, fire, earth or air, and just seeing, how that feels, and noticing what color the dragons are for you. Often times they're connected to the directions too. I see them often connecting to the directions. So it's like if one shows up, it's like 4 will show up. So that's something that I like. And you're daydreaming about building a giant dragon house. That's so fun. Okay. Empire of the Light. Hi, what would you say about a love from a past life coming to visit you? Because I have. That's so fun. So, I think that happens in real life all the time. Past life, loves can oftentimes come back around as, a soulmate or a twin flame, people that we connect with and then move on, or people that we start looking for our whole lives and finally find, are often people we have been with in past lives. It's that familiarity, kind of like I was talking about earlier about the way our interests kind of ride off of familiarity from past lives. So absolutely. And then sometimes, we feel loves from a past life coming around to visit, like in the dream time or on the astral. And it's really just a connection with, the way that we could feel. And I really love that, because it's like an emotion that we can learn to hold. Like sometimes they come around to remind us of what is possible and of how it's possible for us to feel. And that's something that we can really hold and build on and just carry with us. So I love that. It's very, very cool. And it does happen. I mean, it absolutely does. So I just want to thank all of you today. Thank you so much for your amazing questions. I hope I got to all of them. If I ever forget any, if you've noticed I didn't answer, that was an accident, just email me and I'll answer them on the next one. So shoot me an email or comment below this video. Specifically comment, that might be easier for me to keep track of. If you want to maybe get on a Zoom mediumship development group, specifically mediumship development group, we can start, working together and getting, practicing just plain mediumship. And then maybe even, that could turn into something else. But just comment on here if that is something that interests you. If you're interested in mediumship development, it would probably, be something like a weeknight, and what you would be interested in doing or practicing, and what sounds good to you. So awesome. I had so much fun too. Thank you so much. Oh, good, Phoebe. Great. There's a good group, those of you that responded. So thank you, Tamara. I had so much fun. You guys are so much fun to talk to, and I will see you in the next one. I'm thinking the next one is probably going to be October 18th. I might stick with a Monday. I also might do the next full moon. I don't know if full moons work for you, but maybe we can do either next month this time or next month on the next full moon. So we will just go with that, and I will see you all next time. Awesome, Sophia. Thank you so much, Sam. Definitely comment on there so I can get your information and let you know about when that's going to be. Oh, your birthday. Yay. Thank you, Matt. So good to see you guys. So we will do this again, and be on the lookout for my 3 videos this week: mediumship, channeling, and psychic versus mediums. Thank you so much. Bye.